In a world constantly shifting between diplomacy and deterrence, the language of power often speaks in dollars, or more precisely, in billions. The year 2025 has unveiled the latest rankings of the world's biggest military budgets, and once again, the numbers are staggering. But where exactly does all this war money go? To find answers, we'll travel from the bottom of the top 10 list all the way to the very top, revealing not just what's being spent, but what it all means. 10. Ukraine, $53.7 billion. Once a non-player in defense spending, Ukraine now sits at number 10 with a massive $53.7 billion military budget. This isn't just a matter of national pride. It's about survival. Since the outbreak of the full-scale war with Russia in 2022, Ukraine has transformed into one of the most militarized nations on Earth. This budget is powered by a combination of domestic funding, war bonds, and billions in international aid, primarily from the United States and European nations. The funds go into ammunition stockpiles, cutting-edge drone warfare, defensive air systems, training of conscripts and volunteers, and battlefield tech. Ukraine's defense landscape now operates more like a NATO member state than a former Soviet republic. This budget is not a symbol of dominance, but of desperation and resilience. 9. France, $55 billion. At number 9, France stands tall with $55 billion allocated to defense. While it's just a few hundred million above Ukraine, the context couldn't be more different. France maintains nuclear capabilities, an aircraft carrier, and a large professional army. As a founding member of NATO and a permanent member of the UN Security Council, France invests in maintaining its status as a global military power. A significant portion of this budget goes into advanced fighter jets like the Rafale, modernization of nuclear deterrence, and cyber defense. Paris is also doubling down on space and artificial intelligence as the next frontiers of warfare, signaling that its military strategy is not only about present conflicts but also future dominance. 8. Next is Australia, spending $55.7 billion and showing a significant leap in defense posture. For a country often seen as geographically isolated, Australia's recent defense investments suggest growing concerns about regional stability, especially amid rising tensions in the Indo-Pacific. This budget goes into submarine programs, naval expansion, hypersonic missile development, and integration with allies such as the United States and the United Kingdom through the AUKUS Pact. Australia is also focusing on boosting its cybersecurity and drone warfare capabilities. In short, Australia is no longer just the quiet power down under. It's preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. 7. Japan, $57 billion. Japan, with $57 billion, ranks 7th. A historic milestone for a country that, for decades after World War II, maintained a pacifist constitution. However, recent changes in regional dynamics, especially with China and North Korea, have driven Tokyo to rethink its security strategy. The Japanese self-defense forces are being transformed into a highly capable modern military. Investments are being funneled into ballistic missile defense systems, cybersecurity, stealth fighter jets, and space surveillance. Japan is also buying long-range missiles, a clear pivot from its once strictly defensive posture. This budget reflects Japan's evolution from reluctant rearmament to strategic readiness. 6. United Kingdom, $71.5 billion. The United Kingdom secures 6th place with $71.5 billion. As a nation with a long history of military involvement across the globe, the UK remains one of the cornerstones of NATO. A sizable portion of this budget is allocated to nuclear deterrence via the Trident program, the Royal Navy's aircraft carriers, global troop deployments, and its growing cyber warfare units. The UK is also heavily investing in next-generation combat systems like the Tempest fighter program and space-based defense initiatives. This spending is less about brute force and more about staying agile, modern, and globally present. A 21st century version of British power projection. 5. Saudi Arabia, $74.76 billion. With $74.76 billion, Saudi Arabia rounds out the top 5, proving once again that oil wealth and military ambition often go hand in hand. The kingdom has long been one of the highest per capita military spenders. Its defense budget covers everything from advanced US-made jets to missile defense systems, drones, and armored vehicles. Much of Saudi Arabia's spending goes toward buying foreign-made weapons, primarily from the US and European suppliers. Additionally, Riyadh is investing in developing a domestic defense industry, aiming to reduce its dependence on imports by 2030. While critics question the efficiency of this spending, there's no doubt that the kingdom wants to be seen as the dominant military force in the Middle East. 4. India, $75 billion. Just ahead of Saudi Arabia is India, with a military budget of $75 billion. As the world's most populous country and a nuclear-armed state with complex regional dynamics, India's defense spending reflects both geopolitical necessity and domestic defense goals. India's budget supports a massive standing army, a growing navy, and ambitious modernization plans across all service branches. Investments are directed toward missile systems, indigenous fighter jets like the Tejas, aircraft carriers, and AI-driven surveillance platforms. India also shares contentious borders with China and Pakistan, making its high defense budget a reflection of constant preparedness, especially in contested areas like Ladakh and the Kashmir region. 3. Russia, $126 billion. Despite economic sanctions and prolonged conflict, Russia continues to spend big. A whopping $126 billion in 2025. This marks a stark increase over previous years and represents the Kremlin's determination to maintain military dominance. A significant chunk of this budget is absorbed by the ongoing war in Ukraine, from salaries and logistics to the constant replenishment of lost or destroyed equipment. Russia is also focused on building more tanks, hypersonic weapons, and updating its nuclear triad. Cyber warfare and electronic intelligence are other key priorities. Yet, despite the money, questions remain about sustainability. How long can Moscow afford to keep pouring funds into a grinding war while under international isolation? 2. China, $266.85 billion. At number 2, China clocks in with $266.85 billion, making it the only serious challenger to US military dominance, at least in terms of raw budget. This spending is part of President Xi Jinping's vision of a world-class military by 2049. The People's Liberation Army, PLA, is undergoing the most ambitious modernization effort in its history. Aircraft carriers, stealth jets, cyber armies, anti-satellite weapons, hypersonic missiles, AI-based combat platforms, all are being funded through this budget. A large portion is also allocated to military-industrial development, defense R&D, and force restructuring. China isn't just building an army. It's building a military ecosystem designed to rival and possibly outmatch the United States. 1. United States. $895 billion. Towering above all is the United States, with an astronomical $895 billion defense budget, nearly 3 times that of China and more than the combined spending of the next 9 countries on this list. This budget fuels the most powerful military the world has ever known. It supports 800-plus overseas bases, a global navy including 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, stealth bombers, and the nuclear triad. It also drives innovations in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, space defense, hypersonic missiles, and autonomous systems. Beyond hardware, the US military invests heavily in training, intelligence, global alliances, and humanitarian operations. But critics argue that the Pentagon's budget is bloated and in need of reform. Even so, its scale reflects Washington's commitment to being everywhere at once. In summary, together, these 10 countries are spending over $1.98 trillion on defense in a single year. That's nearly $250 for every person on Earth. This colossal investment reflects a world in transition, from old Cold War tensions to new tech-driven rivalries. Defense spending is about more than just war. It's about influence, deterrence, research, and readiness. For some, like Ukraine, it's a matter of survival. For others, like China and the US, it's about shaping the future of global power. Yet in a world still facing poverty, climate change, and humanitarian crises, the question lingers: Are we spending too much on war and too little on peace?